Hello and welcome to the Living Your Best Life webinar series presented by the Huntsman World Senior Games. This is a monthly webinar that covers a wide variety of topics that's designed to help you live your best life. We know that a significant life-altering diagnosis is going to be tough for any of us to receive and to accept. The challenges are many, whether they are mental, emotional, or physical. And in this webinar, our expert, Paul Tracey, is going to present some practical tools that can help people better manage their life after such a diagnosis. Through his own study and his face-to-face work, Paul is convinced that we can learn new ways of acting, thinking, and feeling, and we can actually reset our mindsets. Welcome, Paul.
Hiya, Kyle. How you doing?
Very good. Thank you so much for joining us today. Looking forward to covering this important topic and providing information to people so they can get through a tough time in their lives.
Thank you, first of all, for the invite. I am absolutely delighted. And yes, even when we were speaking last night, Kyle, you know, the number of people that will meet something, it's every family, it's every house, it's everyone, you know, so it's important.
So that brings me to my question. This is obviously a topic that you feel passionate about. What is it that gives you this passion in sharing this information?
Well, I've had my own health journey. I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia a number of years ago, but the real driver was a significant diagnosis for one of my 5 children. When I started exploring health, I've been studying lots of things, which I'll explain this past 25 years. When I started exploring health and then looked around me, other family members, friends who, you know, they just have experienced some really tough things. And I made a decision when I began my coaching career that my role is to help people. That's what I'm about. And I've narrowed that down to, well, I'll help people with their health. Requires a lot of learning. Still more to do, but there's just so many people.
Yeah, no, there's no question. You mentioned it, and it's correct. At some point, every one of us is going to be affected by this, whether it's for ourselves personally or for someone that we love. There will be a significant health diagnosis in our lives at some point. And so to gather together some tools that will be able to help us work through that process, work through that diagnosis, work through that difficult time, I think is going to be very valuable. So Paul, without any further ado, I'm going to turn the rest of the time over to you. I'll be back at the end of the presentation to answer some of those questions. And thank you again for being with us, and we'll turn the time over to you, Paul. Thank you.
Brilliant, thank you. And I'll share my screen now. So good evening, everyone. As I said, I'm delighted to be doing this presentation, and it is something that is so close to my heart and my future work profile. The diagnosis, by definition, means a different future. And when I was hunting for assets for this particular presentation, I even loved this diagram. There will be peaks and there will be troughs. For me, that's the nature of living. That's just how it is. So tonight, what I want to cover are 4 things. I want to explain what I feel a mindset is and how you go about changing that. I want to demonstrate a technique for managing and relieving symptoms, and we'll be joined later by Jeff as our crash test dummy for tonight. He's very kindly agreed to let me jump out of this presentation, and I'll take him through 2, possibly 3 techniques. I'm fascinated by how we stay resourceful in the face of difficulty. You might be familiar with the word resilience. You might be familiar with bounce back ability. You know, there's lots of words for it. What I'm interested in is, well, how do you do it? And lastly, I love the quote which offers, you know, if you change how you look at things, the things you look at change. And that to me is just, you know, it's just so important. It's like, okay, that's what I've got to do now. That's the nature of life. It's the nature of life with diagnosis. So a little bit about myself, just for background. I met Una on a blind date 45 years ago. I live in Northern Ireland in Belfast. We have 5 children and 5 grandchildren, and I'm going to refer to my grandchildren later on in the presentation. I am a lifelong motorcycle enthusiast. I was on the bike today, even though it's very cold over here at the minute. When the fibro kicked in, one of the few places I could be comfortable was on the bike. And now when I meet people, I met one of my neighbors this morning, they said, "You've got a new bike?" And I said, yep, that's my medicine. And we both laughed and he knew what I meant. About 25 years ago, folks, I had a previous career. I was a foreign exchange dealer in a local bank. And that was big fun. But I decided that, there is a future beyond this. And I wanted to learn more. I'd been successful. And I wanted to learn more about, well, how does success happen? And that's what I jumped into at the beginning. Life has taught me many lessons since. And as I briefly described, the health journey for me, for my wife, for my kids, for my extended family, my brothers and sisters, friends, that's the game now for me. So what is the mindset and how do you change it? These are some definitions. I love finding definitions because it helps me understand what it is we're playing with, and I think they're easy words to understand, an inclination, a habit, a way of thinking. Okay, an attitude. That's all very good. The question for me was, but how does it work? What's in it? And I want to explore that with you now this evening. I've settled on this definition, if you can have a read. And I think what that says to me is that it's more than one thing. We treat it as a thing, a mindset, as if it's, there it is, but you can't touch it, you can't hold it, you can't sometimes even describe it. So it's a collection formed out of life experience. It's important to have. And we all have them, and we have lots of them. It's not just one mindset. It shows up in different ways in different aspects of our lives. So to me, it's important to understand, okay, this is what's operating. This is my frame of mind, my attitude, my mindset. And when it comes to a significant diagnosis, one of the things I propose that people do is just check in with yourself to find out what's operating. And I'll explore that with you now in just a few minutes. But I want to explore this picture for a few minutes. I love this picture, I absolutely do. Because for me, it denotes what a mindset is about. We typically don't really know we have them. We might say certain times, well, I'm in a mood, or I'm in this mood, or I'm fired up, or I'm a bit low, I'm a bit whatever. That's my mood, that's my inclination, that's my way of being right now. What the picture signifies to me though is, we have these mindsets and they're how we see the world. We don't see the mindset, we see the world. We see events, we see people, we see things that we enjoy, we see things that we don't enjoy. We experience all of that, but we're seeing them through filters. Filters that have evolved through our lives. I mentioned my grandchildren. I have a brand new baby granddaughter. She's 5 days old. She was born last week. It's the most gorgeous wee thing, the most gorgeous black-haired wee beauty. She has so much potential, so much capability, as everybody does. But no one can know what's ahead of her, and my other grandchildren, and my own children, and you, and your loved ones, your significant others, your children, your grandchildren, that's the case. And that wee baby, when I held her, they're so tiny, and we can't know. But she will form, she will learn, she'll learn to read, write, talk, have fun. Her sister is now 3, and it's wonderful seeing her sense of humor develop. She's such a giggle, as they all are at that age. And it's different being a grandparent than it is being a parent. You've got a completely different perspective, and I have to say, easier in a lot of regards. But for me, it's what it's about. We have these frames of mind which we slip into, and slip out of, just like that. When it comes to a diagnosis, then our mindset becomes even more important. I want to explain now just another little model about how there are things present to us even without our knowing. And I love this little model. It's not mine, I got it from somewhere else. But if you think of anything that you do, any single thing that you do, there's such a bunch of things going on. You know, if you get into the car to drive somewhere, there's a huge amount going on. I use the example when I'm doing this of making a sandwich. You know, I decide I want a sandwich, right? That's not a nice rich tapestry. That's not a big gig, but there's still a lot going on, a huge amount. So there's a whole big bunch of skills. Everything from how I butter the bread, how I cut the bread, how I just set it out on the plate, you know, how it looks to me and how I present a sandwich to my wife or to people visiting, how I present food. There's a whole big bunch of things going on. If I had to heat something up, for example, to go into that sandwich. So I have to think my way around it. I can go to the fridge and open the fridge and my creative process starts. What do I have now? What's here? What do I fancy? This is going on all the time. And I get feelings about all of that. You know, I have a certain mood driven by a certain feeling. I was in a restaurant yesterday evening, and a chap came in, and strangers, and was just talking to him. And he said, I'm not feeling so good. I failed my driving test. Young lad, I went, all right, okay, that's unfortunate. Yes. And he said, I'm just in for some comfort food. And I said, yeah, I understand that. So there's lots of things going on as we think about making food and as we're making it. And for me, this is really, really important. And you'll hear me say this a number of times. The mind and body are one system. The body is not just a transportation system for your mind. What happens here will happen here, and what happens here can happen here. You can't separate the two. And to me, that's massively important, particularly when illness comes along. It's important to realize that. It's always important to realize that, but especially so. And then the whole big engine, the whole big driver, you know, everything about us, everything here. And, you know, even the stories we tell ourselves and the stories we make up our minds and the narratives that we live out of, this is all part of what's going on. And it's just rich. It is really, really rich. And part of my job, I see my job as helping people find answers. That's all. I don't invent things. I go off and find furiously, and you'll see some of that shortly when I talk about the different techniques. But, you know, I go off and find things and help people get into this big box about their history and find resources that they can carry forward into the here and now and into the future. So for me, that's really, really, really important to begin to understand the mindset isn't a thing, it's a whole bunch of processes. It's about now, it's about the past, it's about the future. It's about all of it. What's in a mindset? Folks, I've been playing with this for 13 years now, I think. How I see myself. Who do I say I am? That's part of a mindset. That's part of a frame of mind. What are my values? What's important to me? And what do I believe? I was with a chap one day in my office in the building where I work, and I'm always asking people lots of questions. That's where I find out all this information. I said to this chap, "Are you good with pain?" He knows me and he knows I'm going to ask for a question. Yeah, I'm okay with pain. I said, "Do you ever take a tablet?" So from time to time, I'd take a painkiller. What for a headache or something? I said, okay. So what do you do when you take a painkiller? He says, well, I just go about my day. All right, okay. Very good. What about the headache? Oh, well, I forget about it. All right. How does that work? Well, I don't know. You're the expert. How does that work? And I said, his name is Mihal. I said, Mihal, you know, that tablet hasn't gotten into your system yet. It takes 20 minutes, you know, whatever to get down through. All right. He believes the tablet will help him. We're making decisions all the time, and in so many ways, in so many parts of our day, little minute parts and bigger decisions too. When I was dealing with the fibro, I had to learn certain things. I had to learn to sleep again. And when talking to another chap on a training course. He was asking me about, well, what motivated you? And I said, well, I didn't know exactly what I wanted, but I knew what I didn't want. And it's this very simple frame for motivation. Am I moving towards something or am I moving away from something? I was moving away from something at that time, moving away from muscularity. As I said, my body's involved. The body is not a transportation system for my mind, not at all. It's operating, it's part of the process. We are our physiology. We are what we eat, if you know that story. My mental strategies, how do I do it inside my mind? How does that work? What are the things I see in my mind's eye? What do I hear in my mind's ear? What do I feel physically and emotionally? And living with metaphors, so huge, so huge. It's pretty much how we mostly communicate. I will argue when it comes to dealing with a diagnosis that learning is key. Learning is the answer. When we leave school, we know certain things, but we don't really know about life. We learn that sort of, in the rearview mirror after the event. And when something difficult comes along, then for my money, it's about, okay, what have I to learn now? Something has changed and I have to attend to that. That's going to be my big proposal for you this evening. Deletions, distortions, and generalizations are aspects of how we think. We can't take in all the information that's coming at us. Nowadays, information, there's just a torrent of information. We're being bombarded in every channel, and we have to delete, we have to distort, and we have to generalize. And that's not always a bad thing. That can be really a good thing, but it can set up some problems in how we think, act, and feel. And it's about how we think, act, and feel. And I got this from a friend over in Leicester, Mark, and I just, maybe 16, 17 years ago, and I've used it ever since. I'll also refer to a chap called Andrew Austin, a training provider that I've attended, about how we learn to feel what we feel, how we learn to respond the way we respond. How do we learn to feel that? So it's all about meaning making, folks. The meaning we give an event is what creates the feeling. But we create the meaning. That happens with each of us. And the meaning isn't out there. It feels like it a lot. The majority of the time it's them, it's him, it's her, it's that one, it's this one, it's this event, it's that event, but it's actually going on in here. And that's where it happens. And I am my meaning maker. And once I got hold of that, I thought, right, okay, well, now I've got responsibility. I'm at cause. I own this process. It's mine. It happened internally. And it's me that's making sense of the events and the experiences that I'm having. I am the meaning maker. So how do you go about the reset then? If the mindset thing is just so complex and complicated? Well, I simply go back to these components. It's questions that I ask myself. Has the diagnosis changed how I see myself, how I define myself? I'm a very stubborn and, according to my now deceased mother, smart mouthed person. She used to have a very go at me about that. God bless her. But anyway, so the doctor said to me one day, I've done a whole lot of tests, scans, CAT scans, tests by the dozen. And the doctor said, so Paul, I think this is fibromyalgia. So I said to him, this is about 12 years. I said, doctor, so what's fibromyalgia? He said, in truth, we don't really know. In my mind, in my stubborn, smart mouth way, I said, well, if you don't really know, I'm not really going to have it. So, and thereafter, every time I was asked, what's up with you? I would say, the doctor says I have fibro. And that might sound smart. I think it actually helped me. But I know people and the diagnosis and the definition can sometimes get in the way, and it can sometimes help. And the trick here is to find out what works for each of you. What's important to me? What are my values? I've received this diagnosis. Bang, my mind is shook. For some people, that's traumatic. For their family members, their loved ones, the people they're sharing their lives with and their special moments with, that's a big impact right there too. It really, truly is. And as an individual and as a couple and as a family and as a whatever, we have to decide, okay, so what's important then? What do I have to keep? What do I have to let go of by way of my values? What do I believe? Beliefs and values are different. I believe certain things about this diagnosis. I believe the health professional I'm talking to. I believe this. I believe that. I believe the woman down the road. I believe the man up the street. We're always sorting for information. I had a wee problem a couple of years ago with a kidney function. It's all totally sorted. Everything's tickety boo. But the doctor, when she rang me and said, I was meant to be going on holiday, she said, don't you get on that plane? And I'm okay. And says, the other thing I don't want to do is look at Google. When you get a diagnosis, off we go. Decisions. I thought I'd share this story with you. So when I was diagnosed, and the doctor he offered me some pills. I don't like taking pills, so I took a couple, but then stopped. He also gave me membership for a gym, which I thought was odd because I was in a lot of pain. Anyway, as I said, I'm stubborn. I was in the gym. I was halfway through a 12-week program. I was in the sixth session, and I was halfway through that session. I was on a rowing machine. And I just reached that breakdown moment. There wasn't many people in the gym that day, but if I looked closely, I was in tears, my head down, sitting on this rowing machine. And the internal dialogue, which I'll talk about later, that guy in there was giving me double hell to pay. And the voice in my head said, look at the cut of you. Look at this. This is every bad decision you have made about your health over all this time you've been on this earth. Every bad decision. Yeah, we are making decisions. Sometimes we make really good decisions. Sometimes we make less good decisions. When the diagnosis comes in, well then there's new decisions to be made. Lots of them. The big question that I ask people when they engage me to help them, and it's a simple question. It's what do you want? And some people will want to get away from something, and some people will want to go towards something. The games, the senior games, is about living your best life. That's a movement towards, as I play that in my head. But someone could also be simultaneously moving away from something to get to their best life. It's very, very powerful frame to put around it. And these are all things to explore and play with when you think about dealing with the mindset reset of a diagnosis. Sometimes when I'm working with folk, I can just hit one of these and that's it. That's just a golden moment. Sometimes it takes a bit of work. And it's important that I say, and when people engage, I say, look, we might hit lucky and get a silver bullet, but there aren't any silver bullets. There's lots of information in this world. There's lots of places where you will get tools and techniques and help for whatever you're experiencing through this. But if you're looking for a 1, 2, 3, bish, bash, bosh, you're done. I think it takes more work than that. The mental strategies, how are you thinking? So when anxiety kicks in, what are you seeing happening? You're jumping into a future that doesn't exist, imagining all sorts of horrors. If you're familiar with cognitive behavior therapy, it's a case of catastrophizing. It's like, yeah, I'm going to use my Steven Spielberg capabilities in this magnificent mind of mine and create this horror story, and it's going to make me feel something. I'm going to feel that in my body. My body's going to react. So whatever my symptom is, it might actually get worse because I'm scaring the life out of myself about the future. And some of it's just about helping people. Well, let's put that together in a slightly better way, something that causes you less stress. When my family member was diagnosed, and as I've read since with people with autoimmune conditions, with any condition, stress really affects our bodies. And my family member was told, you've got to avoid stress. To which I replied, well, when I heard that, I replied, well, so when that's sort of right, I'll go walk on water. Stress is in the totality of our lives. There's so many things that cause stress. I'm currently very stressed about politicians. I don't hold them in high regard. So, how am I framing and what am I doing on the inside? How am I thinking my thoughts? And what thoughts am I thinking? What language am I using? And that links metaphors also, deletions, distortions, and generalization. And ultimately, what am I learning and what have I to learn? I can summarize all this down then into, well, if it's about learning, the mindset reset is about taking ownership to find out what meaning are you giving it? What does it mean to you? What does it mean for you? For my money, it's about, okay, I will deal with the diagnosis. As I said earlier, some people will experience trauma. Some people will experience grief already in anticipation. I have another family member whose partner is very, very poorly and has been for about 18 months now, brain injury. And that family member has been grieving since the day and hour the partner was diagnosed. And we've had that conversation, and that person accepts that. And that's about working with that grief now. The way my mind works is to say, so I've got 5 children and 5 grandchildren. At some point, me and my wife aren't going to be here. That would be tough for them. So how about we begin to think about that now and have those conversations and begin to deal with that? Let's contemplate the future. And, let's connect with one another. And if I'm really struggling with my symptoms, well, what about connecting with other professionals, people who know about grief, people who know about depression, people who know about pain relief, people who know professionally, and people who have the lived experience of whatever the diagnosis is. Every single person who's come to me in the 20 years I've been doing this saying, you might want to consider joining a support group. Now, some of those support groups can be tricky because, can be a bit of a pity fit, but there is good information there. There's people who have walked roads that, the newly diagnosed is about to walk, and there are useful alliances there to get hold of and information to take in. So connect. It's also important to connect with practitioners, no matter their skill set. Find somebody good. Find somebody that can help with what it is you're most experiencing. But connect. Too many people at times just try to do it on their own. I'm not sure that's the best way to do it. And, if I say, well, I'm going to get a new mindset, yeah, bang, off you go. But a new mindset needs broken in. It's like a pair of fine leather shoes. You need the breaking. It's like getting used to a new car. I got a new motorbike. It's different than the one before. I'm still working out how it does things differently. Same with the mindset. I'm 65 years of age. I have certain habits. If those change dramatically, well then, I've got to work it out. I've got to evolve a new way of thinking, feeling, and acting. As I say, contemplate for me is the key. Whenever the family member got the diagnosis, it took me a wee while to get my head around that. It really did. But I've decided that I'm taking all that I studied, everything I have studied, and more that I will learn, and I'm going to set that up in the cloud somewhere. I create videos and learning things and say, when I'm not here, and if your situation gets worse, here you go. It'll be there for you. For me, that's the only way forward. I've got to learn how I make sense of the world and the meaning I'm giving things. And then I have to prepare as best I can, both mentally, emotionally, and physically. And folks, there are a world of techniques for all of those. I'm going to touch a few of them now shortly with Jeff's help, but there are such a bunch of techniques. The reset can take a bit of practice. Sometimes I have to be honest and say, bang, it can happen just like that. I can't see you all, but I'm guessing some of you have maybe stopped smoking and you made that decision one day and bang, you became a non-smoker. People can do this. People can absolutely do this. Sometimes it takes work, sometimes it happens more quickly. So I'm going to describe a technique for managing particularly pain relief, and I will stop the presentation shortly and invite Jeff to join us. But I wanted to say beforehand, lots of people need medication. The family member I've referred to needs medication. My other family member who's in a bad way needs medication. Medication is important. I'm not going to dish anything like that. There's very, very clever people studying these things. For me, and dealing with the diagnosis, it's about me having some control over my experience. So when the fibro kicked in, the pain that I felt, the foggy thinking, the not sleeping, the feeling of like fatigue beyond tired. Tired doesn't cover it, and I don't think people really get that. And there's other conditions that come with fatigue. That's tough to deal with. I had to learn things that I could manage myself in my mind and in my body to go off and do. And these are just some of the titles. I have some 40 techniques gathered together at this stage. And this technique that I'm going to take Jeff through, it was developed by a lady called Evelyn Silvers. If those of you older folk in the audience are familiar with Phil Silvers, Sergeant Bilko, Evelyn was, I think, Phil Silvers' second wife. She was a therapist working with people who were dependent on drugs. And she used this very, very simple visualization, which I'll go through now with Jeff. Hello, Jeff.
How you doing, Paul?
I'm doing all right. I'm conscious of time and how we're getting on. Jeff.
Yes.
Without any detail, okay, because nobody really needs to know the detail. You experience pain regularly?
Yes, I do.
Right, okay. And is there, and again, I don't need the detail, is there a medication that you use to deal with that pain?
Yes, there is.
Okay. And Jeff, so that's as much information as I need right now. And Jeff, I'm wondering how good your imagination is.
I'm pretty imaginative, pretty good.
Excellent, good, okay, because that's what we want to do. And Jeff, have you pain right now?
Just minor.
Okay, and if you were to give it a score out of 10, what score would you give it?
Probably a 4, 3 or 4.
Okay, dead on. So Jeff, and if you want, you can do this exercise, eyes open, eyes closed, makes no difference. But what I want you to do is go inside, go into your mind, and I want you to imagine there's a great big pharmacy in there. It can be very old fashioned, it can be an old factory, it can be an old chemist shop, it can be a big modern facility, but there are lots of pharmacists all busy with, I don't know, machines and Bunsen burners doing all sorts of things. And I want you to find the chief pharmacist. Okay?
Okay.
Is that a man or a woman?
It's a man.
And what's he wearing?
A white coat.
Excellent, right? And what sort of age is he?
He's probably 65 years old, 70 years old.
Okay. So I want you to say hello to him. Just do all of this inside you. You don't need to say anything out loud, okay? I want you to say hello and say to him, look, I've got a bit of pain at the moment, and you know that pain reliever I take for pain? I would like you to make a batch of that right now. Just, could you get all the pharmacists to stop what they're doing and just make up a big batch of that pain reliever? And tell them what color you want it to be. What color would you like that pain reliever to be, Jeff?
I like it to be blue.
Okay. Light blue, dark blue, navy blue?
Sky blue.
Sky blue, excellent. So tell them you would like a sky blue, large dose, and get them to go off and get everybody working. So everybody's working now and we're producing this this pain reliever, the sky blue pain reliever, and he goes back and he says, "Oh, I think we've made enough." And I want you to tell him, "No, no, well, actually, could you do another bit? Just a bit more, please. Just make a bit more, you know." And he might end up like Scotty on Star Trek, Captain, she's going to blow, and says, "Just another bit more, you know." And then tell him, "Look, right, I think we're there now. In the count of three, I want you to release all of that chemical right down to where my body needs it right now. And the count of three, 1, 2, 3, release it down through your body." That sky blue pain reliever.
I don't have any pain anymore, Paul.
Right, okay. So I want you to go back to him and thank him. Okay? And then ask him to do all that again, just ever so quickly. So to get the run of it, look, I want another batch, the same amount, same sky blue, and maybe, I don't know, put in some wee sparkles and some just a wee bit nicer, you know, just to make it more fun.
Yeah.
And get all the wee pharmacists, all the boys and girls, the men and women, working, and get them to drop that down through. Bang, just like that.
It's amazing how that works.
So how did it work? What did you experience?
Well, it's funny because as I was going through the process, I felt it tingling through my body, and then the pain kind of disappeared.
Wow, cool.
Yeah, it's great.
Not just
it was amazing. Yeah.
So it's not a big solution to something. It's something we can practice. You know, if I've had my pain relief for the day and I can't take more, or I can't take more for another couple of hours, well, what else can I do? And for me, the idea that this that we have here and this that we have here can work in harmony together, and that we can engage in some visualization to very quickly turn inside and create something for ourselves. To me, that's powerful in the extreme.
It is very powerful, Paul. Very, very powerful.
So when you think of the pain now, Jeff, the pain that you had,
yeah,
what's there now?
I don't know. It's just kind of a numb. I mean, my hands. I have arthritis. My hands are just. There's no tingling. There's no hurt. It's just kind of. I don't know. It's hard to describe. It's just kind of numb.
And one of the things I love. Sorry for interrupting you. One of the things I love when I do this is the look of pure confusion on people's faces.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, yeah, that one there, yeah. What just happened? And I said earlier, I think I just begin to close down. I'm conscious that we're up over 40 minutes now, Jeff, and I'm conscious I don't want to delay the audience too long. But if I could just chat to you about that and say, you know, whatever your diagnosis, whatever it is you're dealing with in life, it seems to me that nobody really tells us about what this does.
Oh.
It's important that we understand our medications. It's important that we understand the trajectory of the condition. It's important that, you know, sometimes we need counseling for the pure shock of the thing. But what I'm most interested in is, what are the tools that I can use in here to help me work my way through?
Right.
And that's, you know, that's with practice, that little technique, you can do that as well. I don't need to be there with you to do it.
True.
It's learnable, and these for me are the things that when a diagnosis comes along, and whatever the symptom is, and some symptoms are very hard to contend with and live with, but how do I make sense of it? What meaning do I give it? If I get into an internal dialogue per me, if I relate to previous past experiences of pain or symptom, and if I project those all into the future, well then, you know, that's one way of using my mind. But if I can go and say, right, okay, well, there's some things I can learn that are useful and will help me on my journey now as I take account of my new situation. Then what are those things? And I love it when you said, yes, you have a good imagination. when you say that, Jeff, what do you mean you have a good imagination?
Well, I was in theater in college, so I used my imagination to come up with different characters for the different plays I was in. So
You were what, sorry, in college?
I was a theater major in college for a while.
Oh, were you?
I was.
Oh, Jeff, we need to talk. um, no, we really do. For me, I sort of mentioned earlier, the Spielberg thing. Our minds are hugely powerful and hugely creative. And if we can imagine a scenario into the future and then act it out, if I can imagine walking more freely, more easily, if I can imagine doing things, more easily, more at ease, and if I can create that theater of my mind, it's going to impact my body, and it's going to impact my mood and my mindset.
Right. Well, Paul, if it's okay, I need to share something with everybody that you shared with me in one of our first conversations.
Sure thing.
I was talking with you about my diagnosis, my life-changing diagnosis.
Yep.
And I said that I knew that something was wrong for a couple of years. I just didn't know what it was. When I got the diagnosis, it was good because I finally knew what my enemy was.
Yep.
You stopped me and said, that's bad thinking, Jeff, because it's you. So when I say what my enemy is, I'm saying that I am my own enemy. So you corrected my thinking to say that I now know what I'm dealing with.
Yep.
So just that simple change right there made a big difference to me and how I cope with my challenges, because it's not my enemy, because I'm not my enemy, I'm myself. It's me.
Jeff, when you reported that back to me, I was so glad. I'm studying a lot about the immune system, in particular autoimmune conditions. And the common language about autoimmune condition is that the immune system is attacking the person. I prefer to look at that as, well, the autoimmune system is responding to something. The autoimmune system is part of me. It's of me. It's me. It exists in my gut. It develops there. Right. And the health of my gut will affect my immune system. So it's responding. It's a signal. I was taught early on that all pain is a signal. If I don't stop and listen to, well, what is my body saying to me right now? Well, then that becomes really, really important. Really, really important. Jeff, what I'll do, I feel compromised sometimes. So what I'll do is I'll make a video of the presentation and fill in the gaps of the pieces that I'll not share. I'm going to jump to the last slide because it seems to me an important point to make. For me, folks, it really is about looking into the future. You might need help in the here and now dealing with the impact of the diagnosis. As I've said a couple of times, perhaps it's traumatic, perhaps it sets off a grief process. Absolutely speak out loud and get help for that from family, from friends, and from professionals. But for me, most of all is, right, I am where I am. What can I learn that will help me deal with this? And what can those that live with me, because, as I said earlier, I met my wife 45 years ago. We're on this road together. What can she learn as she helps me or I help her for whatever comes along? So, folks, for me, this is too simple. I've got to think about the future. Ignoring it might be a bit of fun for the short term, but I will have to deal with it at some point. I might need help. I might need somebody outside of me that will help me. Absolutely. Help me deal with the impact, the mental, emotional impact. Some people suffer depression. Some people suffer acute anxiety. It's just important that you speak to others about that. Family, friends, chosen professionals. And for my money, for the mindset reset, okay, I didn't see this coming. I don't know what it is, but by golly, I'm going to use all my faculties to learn how to equip myself. And if it's my wife, Una, me helping her helping me, if it's my children, if it's my brothers and sisters, right, folks, here's things. You're worth the learning. Some are very easily learned. Some take a bit of practice, but it's absolutely worth the doing.
Well, Paul, that is great advice and a very interesting exercise that you walked through with Jeff. I was impressed with that, and want to follow up with him on that as well. What a great visualization and a way to move through. I had a couple of other notes that I took as I was listening to your presentation, things that really stood out to me that maybe I'll share.
Sure.
They're not questions, they're just comments. The first one is you talked about the importance of connectivity and connecting with people. And, the research that I have done and the studies that I have read and been exposed to, so many of them talk so about the importance, how important it is that we connect, that we stay connected. And certainly through a very difficult time, like a difficult diagnosis, you do want to connect. You want to connect with family, friends, loved ones, but also you mentioned you want to connect with experts and people who have been through it and who are going through it and who know how you can feel. They can empathize with you. And I think that's just vitally important. I think that's great. The other thing that you mentioned that really stood out to me is the concept and the idea that you have to practice a new way of thinking. This, for some of us, maybe some of us it is. Like you said, you snap your fingers and all of a sudden everything's different. But I think for the vast majority of us, and I mean the vast majority of us, it's a process that's going to take time. And it's just like any other thing. If you can't wake up in the morning after a sedentary life and say, I'm going to do an Ironman triathlon today. I'm just going to go out there and do it. That's not the way that it works. But you can wake up in the morning and practice walking a little bit more, running a little bit more, swimming a little bit more, biking a little bit more. And over time, through that process, you can become an Ironman triathlete. And I think this mindset concept is the same thing. We have to practice changing the way that we think about things. Now, that being said, we do have a couple of questions that I want to get to because I think that there's some insights here. The first question is, could positive thinking be the answer to everything? What's your thought on that, Paul?
Well, I make a wee video because I have a couple of slides. It depends what you think positive thinking is. I'm convinced positive thinking is a huge component of successful living our best lives. But for me, positive thinking is I've got to look into the future and see the outcome that I want to have happen. That's called goal visualization. But then I have to see the process. Some people see a goal and their brain goes, all right, well, that's sorted, it's done. But it isn't. I've got to imagine the process to that. So it's goal visualization and process visualization. Jack Nicklaus, the famous golfer, talks beautifully about how he would visualize the outcome, the ball on the green, and then he'd visualize how he would make the shot that would get the ball to the green. So positive thinking, yes, I think it's massively important. I think also though, Kyle, we have to allow ourselves our tired moments. You can't walk through it, I believe. It's just a belief. Some people are unbelievably cheerful, and no matter what comes, they're still up there and smiling. But sometimes in the dark of night, the bogeyman comes. So it's about dealing with that and then getting back on track. Right? Okay, I'm going to. And can I just go back? I absolutely believe, I was talking to a good friend today. When COVID came along, we lived beside the sea. We're 10 minutes from the sea. And me and him and his partner, we walked loads. We absolutely walked loads. And we developed a habit of walking. In this past 2 months, we've lost that habit. Life got busy again and things got in the way. And we both had a conversation. Right, we're going to meet once a week, we're going for a walk, we're going for a 10-mile walk. And that's a decision. Mindsets are about a decision.
I love it. I love it. That's part of that connectivity. That's part of that positive thinking, the action that's required, the process that's required. The next question, I think also very relevant. Is there a spiritual component to this type of thinking?
It depends on the teacher and depends on the person. I will say as an answer, yes, if you need it to be. There's one particular model by a chap that I've studied with, Robert Dilts, and it's logical levels. So I've got environment, behavior, capabilities, values and beliefs, identity, and then mission and spirituality at the top. Yes, you can tune in to a spiritual aspect. Some people that I've studied with and been in training rooms with have said, yeah, well, once I got to that place, once I got away up there, I found real peace, and I was able to deal with challenges in a completely new way. So I am seriously open to that. Yes.
Awesome.
Might not be for everybody, but yes, I'm open to it.
Excellent. Okay, great answer. One last question, unless there's another one that comes in just as we're wrapping up here. And it's this one, it's a good one. What other resources are available to help someone develop this type of thinking? Are there books? Are there websites that you have found that have been helpful in learning and understanding this concept?
I know there's a lot of not nice stuff on the internet.
Yeah.
But for my money, it's the biggest library on the planet, and I'm on it every single day hunting things out. That technique I took Jeff through, I found that on the internet. I went looking, and it's about asking the right question. When I use Google, ask the right question. Can I also comment that when I first started out, maybe 26 years ago, one of the first books I read was a book about cognitive behavior therapy, The Feeling Good Handbook by Dr. David Burns. And it's a bit of a doorstop book. But the first half of it was a whole bunch of exercises that you could do about feeling good. That was sort of my starting point, and I've gone lots of places. Yes, there are some really top class online courses you can do without being a practitioner or specialist. And I would create a wee list of these, the ones I like. There are books, there are websites, there are blogs. If you have a library nearby, join the library, join a book club. And if reading is your thing, if you need something, if your learning style demands that you need to see it done, well then go online. If COVID permits, join a group and learn the techniques, absolutely.
Again, it kind of goes back to that connectivity, but also to that concept that you presented at the beginning, and that is that everyone's journey is their own. And, there's a variety of ways. There's no one right way to move forward. Everyone's journey is their own, but you find the way that works for you. And lots of resources available online and otherwise. How, if people had additional questions, how would they get a hold of you? Do you have a website that they can reach out to, or how would they get a hold of you?
My website is www.healthforyourself.net. My email is paul@healthforyourself.net.
Excellent.
And I'm open for questions all of the time. Absolutely.
Wonderful. Well, Paul, thank you so much for your time today, for your expertise. This has been very enlightening and entertaining and great information. I think that we'll all find useful at some point in our lives, regardless of our situation and scenario. So we want to thank you very much.
Okay, thank you for the invite. I'm delighted. Apologies for running over a bit.
You're just fine.
But I'll fix that up. But thank you. I think it's just such an important topic.
Wonderful. Paul, thank you. And we also want to thank you for joining us today. If you enjoyed today's webinar, be sure to let your friends know about the Living Your Best Life webinar series. All these webinars are available, including this one in a few days, will be available on our website, which is seniorgames.net. We want to make sure that we invite you to join us next month for a very special show where we'll feature Dr. Jared Dupree, and his topic will be the psychology behind setting effective goals, which we think is very timely as we get ready to end one year and begin a new one with New Year's resolutions in mind. That's all going to take place on Wednesday, December 15th, 2001, and it's going to start at 11 a.m. Mountain Time, and will run until about noon. And until we meet again, get out there and live your best life. Thanks, everyone.